MarketGauge.com. Look, tech has done so incredibly well. You've had so many tech stock picks over time. And now that we've hit records last week, are you feeling that there's still more room to the upside or no?
Well, certainly we saw a lot of upgrades calls for 7,000, 7,200 in the SPY. And I think it's a market that's hard to doubt. However, I really like to stick to my strategic numbers, and I'm using very religiously right now this July 6-month calendar range, which means the high that was made within the first 2 weeks of July, and whether or not we can pierce through that level or we fail it. And at this point, as we're starting this week, Nicole, SPY and Q, no problem, hopped right above it. But we still haven't seen the small caps go through it. We haven't seen retail. It's sort of danced around but hasn't really gone through it. Transportation and semiconductors, interestingly, are right in the middle of the July range. So I feel at this point that I want to see those things catch up. If not, we know what happens very often when the SPY and Qs all of a sudden look over their shoulder and find out that the rest of the market isn't necessarily following. You start to see the profit taking come in and perhaps a correction. But at this point, I'm going to give it a little more time because we are such a heavy laden week with data.
And now at this point, we have earnings piling in, and Alphabet, Google already came in. There was some good news there. We'll have Meta, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. Do you like these names? If they dip, are you buying more?
Well, I mean, Microsoft has been the story. I actually remember not too long ago, it's sitting at around $285, looking like the underdog, and now seeing it at $515. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt. But we love the IBM story this year. And then we saw actually the opposite happen after earnings. It had this big gap down, and now it's struggling to catch up. So, anything could happen, of course. But this is AI's world, and we're just living in it at this point. So anything that is really being, in terms of the pioneer on that spectrum, Microsoft now joining that race, especially getting involved with other things outside of what they used to do. This is all good. This is the retail investor has kept this market afloat. And what's so interesting is that us old-timers who sit there and really try to analyze all these things, it actually has become sort of a backseat to the fervor. And if you follow the fervor, it's really hard to ignore that right now.
So you're talking about different areas, right? So it's not just tech here. And while I do want to see if you have any tech stock picks, you do talk about small caps, retail. Are those areas that you're watching for? Are those areas you'll put money to work in?
Well, in terms of the small caps, I mean, they're certainly doing okay. I think if we're looking at IWM, and I saw you flash the chart briefly before, what I was showing was the difference between what happened in January in both SPY and small caps and what's happening now in July. And what happened in January was the SPY took out the 6-month calendar range there of January. And then it actually, when IWM started failing, it did. And now SPY is so much higher and IWM is sort of circling. So if IWM can get through, or the small caps can get through that range, which is so important, you're showing January right now, but if you flip to the one in July, then I think you have a tremendous amount of opportunity. There have been a lot of people waiting for the value trade, for the small caps to catch up. And let's face it, if all of this implementation of tariffs and BBB, and if we can get the rates to drop at some point this year and the dollar doesn't go screaming too much higher and inflation doesn't go out of control, it could be its turn. But you got to be a little patient, I think, right now. It has to prove itself.
I saw, and I do want to talk about silver and gold, but for some of the names that you said, the trades you're most excited about, tell us about some of those names.
Well, I think hopefully at this point now people know me for the vanity trade. I've said that so many times. I can't say enough about this is a mega trend that is in infancy. Of course, the result of the diet drugs. And if you look at the diet drugs themselves, Eli Lilly had a really nice breakout last week. if it holds it around 8.10. I know I haven't looked at the earnings. I know, for example, Ulta is not earning until the end of August. That would be another one that has rallied over $150. And nary a word do you hear about it. That's an impressive move. But all of the impacts of people that get thin or thinner, and as the availability and affordability of these diet drugs continue to make it more mainstream, I think you're going to see a tremendous change in what the consumer market looks like. It's niche in terms of those people entering the market. We're even looking at dating apps. I mean, all of a sudden, Bumble's done well, and Match.com has done well. I think that's a huge area and maybe not talked about enough, because these stocks have really not done much. ELF is another one over the last couple of years compared to AI, and I think there's a lot of room to the upside.
Yeah, I mean, the vanity trade you've talked about, like the Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, and then beauty like ELF and Ulta you have on there. Some of the other names that you mentioned here, I think it was Stitch Fix, Bumble, Garmin. Tell me about some of those names.
Well, Stitch Fix is interesting because that was a $130 stock at one point, and it dropped really down to below $3, and now it's trading just above $5. And the reason why I kind of focused on that is, one, is that it did have somewhat of a technical breakout. I know that sounds silly when you're looking at something like Microsoft, but nonetheless, relative to that stock, it's a company that you custom makes clothes for you after you give them all your dimensions. They send them to you, and then you can decide what you want to keep and send back the rest. And I think in that diet drug world, if you are in the process of losing weight, or for whatever reason you still do not want to go into a store to try on things, or you anticipate losing more weight, or maybe you don't feel like it's going to stay, this is a good way for you to buy clothes. So I like that one. Garmin is actually really, I mean, besides the fact that it has incredible technology for aerospace, it actually also has incredible technology for people who are interested in their heart rates, etc. It's a really good technological tool to have, Garmin. And then as far as, other things like Planet Fitness, for example, I have put that on the list. Anything, even Nike I saw got an upgrade today. I think you have to really watch that whole area. And what I'm really recommending to people is, if you know somebody on the diet drugs, ask them, what are you looking at now? What are you buying now? What type of beauty products are you looking at? How has your life changed?
And last but not least, I mean, I know you mentioned, I think you like silver a little more than gold. Would you get in that just quickly? And then I want to ask you your favorite Mag 7 name.
Okay, well, silver, what I'm really more interested in is right now how silver is performing versus gold. That ratio is really important. At one point, it screamed in favor of gold, and it's come down a lot. Not necessarily more in favor of silver. Silver will never be priced more than gold, but it's what it is relative to gold. And it got down to around 85, 86, which is still historically high. So if that starts to flip and we start to see that ratio, silver get up more and more of a bid, I think that A, is information for potential inflation, and B, a good trade for silver, and not so bad for gold either. But silver right now at $38, as soon as it stalls, all the bears come out. I wouldn't discount it. It's a metal that is needed for solar technology. It's a good conduit. It's obviously, if we're going to go into any growth and these trade deals work out, it could be very bullish for silver. So yeah, I think we get through 40, we're going to go up to 50.
And what is your favorite, thank you for that, and what's your favorite Mag 7 name? We have Meta, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon reporting this week. We just talked about Tesla for a new chip deal. What name do you like the best?
Well, it's hard to go with NVIDIA. I mean, I think that any dip in NVIDIA looks like a buy opportunity unless we get into some massive correction. And I like Microsoft would be my second choice because, like I said, it lagged for so long. This is an exciting time, and I don't see any reason why that stock can't continue to go higher.
All right. Mish Schneider of MarketGauge.com. It's great to see you, Mish. Thank you so much.